Okay, we are live. So for those listening at home, welcome to the Live from the Sword Coast podcast. My name is Kevin Madison, and I will be your friendly dungeon master this afternoon. Today, I am going to be continuing on with my participation in the RPG a Day event for 2017. So this is day 2, and the question today is, how about there we go. I'll put it over my head. What is an RPG you would like to see published? So I've been thinking about this today, and my answer is going to be a bit of a cheat. To start my answer, I guess I'm going to bring you back to the winter of 1991. So in 1991, I was 14 or 15 years old. And I must have been 15 because I was working my first job. Not like a paper route or something like that, but a job, proper job type job, working as a busboy and dishwasher in an Italian restaurant in my hometown. On this particular dark and wintry night, I happened to be praying that I be kept later than I normally was. The weather was not great. Where I grew up is in the middle of the Canadian prairies, so it's pretty darn cold in the wintertime. So folks don't like going out for dinner. But fortunately, we did have some late arrivals, so I ended up staying quite late that night, and I was quite grateful. You see, I was paid from that job under the table, and I had a very specific purchase in mind. Because you see, in the winter of 1991, there was something very special that came out. That was the original Dark Sun box set. Now, at the time, I was a second edition AD&D player, and I enjoyed it, and it was a lot of fun. But I was also had discovered Call of Cthulhu, so something, and that was really more interesting to me than just doing some, not just, but then doing dungeon crawls and whatever. Dragonlance had sort of, my interest in that had sort of waned. Spelljammer was not my bag at the time. So there wasn't really much that was offering through or from TSR that really, gripped my interest. And then I saw the poster for this, and it blew my mind. I had no idea what I was looking at. At the time, I hadn't read the Edgar Rice Burroughs Barsoom novels, so I don't know what to expect from it. I just knew that it looked really cool. It had high-level characters, and I needed the set. The set did not let down when I finally got it, and it was amazing. It totally renewed my interest in D&D, and we played this like crazy. This is not my original box set, because my original box set is in pieces. This is a replacement copy I picked up from a shop not too long ago. For those unfamiliar with Dark Sun is an old D&D setting that basically tries to capture and play up more of the sword and sorcery aspects of D&D rather than the high fantasy aspects of D&D. It features a blasted, desolate world of desert and desert and slaves and sorcerer kings, and really a less generous way of saying it would be to say grimdark twists on the existing D&D races and stuff like that. But at the time, that was really not a thing. So it just seemed like really cool and more savage versions of the trope characters or trope races and whatnot. So you had elves. But they were not forest-dwelling, kind of archers. They were super tall. They ran across the desert, and they were dirty thieves. Dwarves were clean-shaven because it's a desert, setting, I guess. So clean-shaven, and they had this not ability, I guess, but they had this character trait to focus on things. They could focus their attention on tasks to such a degree that if they died without completing a focus, they may actually come back from the dead as a dwarven banshee. Elves or halflings were, this is something that always kind of got me. Halflings were described as being cannibalistic tribes that lived in the jungle. The thing is, I don't think they actually ate themselves. They just ate other sentients. So I don't think they're actually cannibals, but they did eat other living things. So halflings were these nasty savages who would, kidnap you and poison you and then potentially eat you. There were Thri-kreen, this really cool mantis man rate kind of hybrid that was first introduced in the Monster Manual 2 that was brought back as a PC race in this, which sort of, you know, having read the Barsoom novels, is sort of the whatever the Tars Tarkas's race is called in those novels. They also had these hybrids so you had half elves, which were a standard thing of D&D, but you also had mules, which were half dwarf, half man. And it was great. Like in addition to, I guess the other two signature elements, maybe three, I'll say three signature elements of the setting as well are no gods. So there's only clerics only prayed to elemental spirits. And I'm trying to think if they were clerics. I think it was priests at the time in second edition. But anyway, they played to elements. So it was fire or, you know, well, water. Water doesn't really exist in the desert setting, but air or earth clerics. And then there were also some para-elemental clerics that were introduced later. Wizards, arcane magic, I mean, functioned where it actually required life to fuel it. So you could be one of two different kinds of spellcasters or mages. You could be a preserver who would cast your magic but would draw in the power in a responsible way so you weren't raising the ambient life around you in order to work your magic. A more selfish approach, which is what the Sorcerer Kings did, was to be a defiler. And a defiler rips the life out of the surrounding territory to cast its spells. And the way it manifested was it would leave this blasted black circle around you for where you had drained all the power up. At the time, this is when different character classes advanced at different rates, and not surprisingly, Defilers gained levels a lot faster than what Preservers did. This is in the day when it took forever to get levels as a wizard. But anyway, that was the cool, evocative thing about wizards. And the final sort of element that really stood out about Dark Sun was the omnipresence of psionics. The complete psionics handbook had just come out recently, maybe concurrently with this box set actually, and they used it as an opportunity to incorporate that into the setting. So you would have psychics, and I think every character also had a wild talent as well too. Everyone had a random ability, so it was a neat way of sort of distinguishing your character. So that's the setting, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I have followed along every other edition I've got. This is the second edition box set that was released for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I actually forgot to grab, but there's a 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons version as well that was released. And then for 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons, they released 2 versions of it in the back of Dungeon Magazine. I think maybe one was in Dungeon, one was in Dragon, but in any event. So they've released versions from all of them, and we're sort of eagerly awaiting a version to come out for D&D 5th edition. Now, the thing is as much as I love and I've run these settings, I don't think that Dungeons and Dragons is actually the right system to run this. There are other elements of the setting that are much closer to sort of sword and sorcery elements, like the box set, in particular the original box set. The second box set changed some of the setting elements to make it less bleak, but the original box set and the 4th edition version of it are very, very Conan-ish, to be honest. I mean, very sword and sorcery. Your characters can go from paupers to kings to paupers again. You're not seeing the steady growth of your character in terms of real world wealth and stuff like that. The game really plays up with that. Your fortunes turn on a dime or on a ceramic piece, as the case may be in Dark Sun. I guess that's the other thing. There's no metal. Metal's very, very scarce resource in Dark Sun as well too. So you use weapons made out of like obsidian or chitin or bone or wood, treated alchemically or magically in some cases. So the thing is that D&D, it just didn't capture a lot of the, I didn't feel it captured the spirit, the sort of pulpy spirit that I imagined that would be present in this setting. And that was sort of presented in the novels as well too. There's a bunch of novels that came out for this, including a quintilogy. I don't know, is that how you say 4 or 5 books? Anyway, 5 books came out for this one series that basically blew up the setting, unfortunately. So, which is why you saw a completely different world in the second box set than he did in the first one. But in any event, so Dark Sun has that. They've also got rival merchant houses that try and compete with the, with each other. There are slave tribes that haunt the wastes between the cities. There are Templars who serve the various sorcerer kings who have been granted a fraction of their power. Each of the city states themselves has a sort of real world analog that comes from a certain point in the classic period. So you would see things like there's a place called Balak that is very much like Republican Rome. There is Tyr, which is, I think it's supposed to be a Babylonian type place. I may be confusing that. There's a place called Uruk, which is for sure supposed to be a Babylonian type place, complete with a giant lion-headed ruler. There are places that have sort of a I think it's called Draj, which has a kind of like sub-Saharan African feel to it. But anyway, so there's all these really neat elements in there, and they're so pulpy. They're very, very pulpy. And I just don't think that D&D, in particular, the way that characters advance up in D&D, really suits them, where you get to a certain point where your character at a certain level is unrecognizable from where he or she was at first level. So I've myself have clued together rules before from different systems to try and get them to go or to work with this to capture that desperate kind of sword and sorcery and bleak feel that I think is appropriate for Dark Sun, including an effort by on my part to sort of cobble together a Ubiquity style system that would emulate what I saw as sort of the key elements of Dark Sun. But I gave up on that project, probably because I got distracted by something shiny, to be honest. But what I would love to see, which it's not going to happen because of rights and whatever else too, but here's what I would love to see. I would love to see a game published specifically for the Dark Sun setting, designed from the ground up to suit that setting. Not something that is D&D that's been, dials have been twisted and whatnot to try and emulate this. A setting or a game wholly crafted from the ground up around this setting. The closest that I've found in recent years to fitting that bill, I think, is Modiphius's 2D20 Conan game. Regular viewers of the channel will know that I'm a huge fan of that game, but and the reason I am, if I've said in a number of the actual plays before, but it's worth repeating for the purpose of this. The reason I think it would be great is because it captures both the desperate, kind of, your life is in danger at almost any given point, kind of feel of the sword and sorcery setting or genre, I guess, or subgenre. But it also supports really larger than life heroes. So it really allows you to have it both ways. You can have these great, epic heroes with some really, really interesting tactical decisions to be made in combat without slowing the game down to a crawl. But you're also vulnerable. You're not superhuman, So I've sort of made some notes to try to kludge that together, but I'm running a bunch of different games right now, so I just don't have time to sit down and hammer those out. But the question is, what's an RPG you would like to see published? I would love to see a Modiphius published Dark Sun game that is strictly designed to suit that setting. So anyway, so that's my answer for today's question. I will see you folks hopefully tomorrow. Thanks for listening. And if you have any questions or comments, you think this is a stupid idea or a great idea, please feel free to enter those in the comments below, and I will be sure to address them. Thanks very much, and see you next time.